podcast audio fucking thing,
nice.
blah blah blah. And hey Gregory, guess what? It's episode 35 of the Triggerman Podcast. Was that aggressive? I'm sorry, the coffee's kicking in. Okay, first thing I have to start with is, alright, this is I guess newly acquainted well, no, I know you for many years, but not very first time kind of hanging out.
Yeah. Other than at that place on Coanga, that was when the world was working properly.
Yeah.
What's the place? The pizza joint.
Oh, Elbow Room.
Elbow Room.
Yeah,
Thank you.
One of my favorite bars in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Gregory.
Greg's. Yeah, my mom calls me Gregory.
No, I want to get the name right.
Okay.
But, okay, I'm going to get 2 attempts at your name.
Okay.
It's either French sounding or it's said how it's said, like a Gregory Cote or Gregory Coates.
It's the Irish spelling of Coates.
The fuck out of here.
With
really?
the E. Without the E is the English spelling.
Shit. I was trying to be fancy. Shit.
Well, it took some guys in Amsterdam one day to tell me. Some Irish guys told me. They asked me what my last name was, and I said Coates, and they said. And I said, spell it. I said, Coates. I'm like, oh, it's the Irish spelling. I'm like, is it? And because I didn't know. I knew I was, like, my family was Irish and Scottish and a few other little mutt-like things. And
hey.
And he goes, you know anything about your family? And I'm like, not really. I mean,
you're definitely white.
I'm about as white as you can possibly get.
Blue eyes, white. If anyone is just listening. Like,
I'm not naturally this blonde, but as a kid, I was a towhead.
Yeah.
But I figured, since I'm old, this makes me look less old.
You're not that old. You're fine.
I don't feel old.
That's good. Wasn't you're as young as the woman you're feeling? Okay, I want to start because you said something funny right before we started.
Okay.
So about like women, being a band guy and women. Okay, I gotta go back. Okay, so I'm 19 years old. I'm in college. I work in a guitar store, and I'm in a cover band like in Ireland. That was really big at the time. And like I was in it for 6 months with these guys. I never knew them beforehand. They hired me to sing.
Mm-hmm.
And 6 months later, like they kind of like talked to me in the van as we're driving. It goes like, hey, just be honest with us. It's no big deal. Like are you gay or something? And I was like, what? The fuck? Like, really offended. Like, because you're young. Like, what? No, fuck. I was like, like, women are hitting on you every night, right? And I was like, what? It's just like,
there's 2 kinds of guys in the world, I think, and I
stupid ones.
Well, there's ones who don't. Well, growing up in a family full of women,
mm-hmm.
and being raised predominantly by my mom, I had a strong female figure, and all this female energy around me, and then later, working in a corporate environment with women for a very brief moment, you learn to treat them like people because they are. And and when someone's hitting, I never got it. Not through high school. I never got it. Being a kid again, playing in clubs. As a kid, and before I could even drive, that until like a drunk lady would run up on stage and start dancing with me, and her husband was like threatening to kill me from the audience. That I got that she was interested in me. But some people just don't assume. And and those are probably the guys who get relegated to the friend zone oftentimes too.
I'm like, oh man, I have this vivid memory of that same band, and like afterwards the bar locks up and you get to have the drinks afterwards. Everyone, but they're like the couple of stragglers stay behind the locals. I vividly remember hanging out with the lads drinking at the bar, and a girl like on a bar stool, and a chick is standing right in between my legs talking like 4 inches from my face, and I'm like, yeah dude, fuck great. And then one of the driver, I think Mark was his name, he goes, okay, we're leaving. I went, okay, see ya. And I just like walked away. I was like, and then the guys were like, what are you doing? I was like, what? I was like, I didn't get it, dude. I still don't, though. I'm fucking useless. Like,
it's a fine line. It's a fine line. It's like if you know that someone's interested in you, I think that maybe regardless, and it probably goes for females as well. I imagine if it's that easy, there's no challenge to it. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not Brad Pitt, so I wouldn't know. Women aren't. I'm not like
could have fooled me
throwing women off of me. It's like maybe 20 years ago. It's funny, a long time ago. This is a story relating to that kind of thing, and I had no idea. I was, when I was involved in the.
You should probably say what you do, or you're a musician. You're a fucking
I'm primarily a musician. I'm also a luthier and just a tech and engineer, and I do a lot of stuff. It's music. I'm involved on some level.
Right. There's your premise. Everyone knows now. Continue.
Yeah. Anyway, what was I going to say? Tangents.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I shouldn't have stopped.
No, it's okay. What was I going to say?
Relative to the women thing.
Yeah.
Crap, I'm an asshole.
No,
this
that's
podcast
okay.
Is over.
That's my problem. That's what they say. The memory goes first.
First the weed, then the memory.
Yeah. You just don't forget the weed.
Yeah.
That way you don't forget the memory.
No, you do forget.
You do forget the memory.
Okay. You forgot it already. Like
Yeah.
so. I'm so bad at that. Sorry.
Oh no, it's all. It's fine. I'm trying to remember what we were talking about there a second ago. Well, it'll come back. It'll come back in the middle of something else. I'll be like, wait.
Basically, moral of the story: women are evil. Fuck you, species, people, things. I don't know. Fuck, I hate you all. Like so.
Well, that was the thing, assuming the whole. Being friend zoned because you're the nice guy. You don't want to assume anything. You don't want to offend anyone. But at the same time, they're waiting for you to make this move.
Yeah. And you have no idea.
And you have no idea that they're waiting for you to make this move because you're not the other kind of guy who assumes every chick that comes near you wants that.
Well, like, so.
And and they're always the ones that end up with the girls, but they always end up bummed out afterwards.
Yes, but also the quality of girl. That's the thing. Like so, that's the one thing I've learned when I hang out with like those guys. Like I have a few of the lads that they have a few fucking beers or the fucking the confidence is just like through the roof.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck? And they will latch on to anything with a pair of tits. So it's just like, but it's a sport to watch because I could never lower myself. I don't know. I just can't do. I flirted obviously with women drunk, but
the best thing you can do is make them laugh.
That's my first rule.
I think, and
that's it. My first rule with anybody, though, just like make them laugh.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, if you can make somebody laugh, then you obviously you break down that guard, you break down that barrier, that defensive barrier, because obviously you're leveling the field of, humility and humor is some of the best things you can expose.
100%.
The best way you can expose yourself to people.
Yeah, if I've learned anything from my 20 minutes on Tinder. I couldn't do it, dude.
I haven't went there yet. It's hard enough in real life. The thing is, there's so much sketchy, scammy stuff out there. It's just I just don't even open myself up to it.
My friend Bunny at home in Ireland, like he'll send me screenshots. It's so funny of like women in your area and like the profiles, what they say, and I'm just like. I had this conversation I think last week with Francesca. She was on. I was why don't they just call it? Like iwannafuck.com. Like that's what it's for. Like so like but it's like what did he send me the other day? It was like 20
But you're gonna pay me.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, that happens as well.
Regardless, it always happens. You always end up paying for it.
What movie was it? It's the guy that gets the girl and she'd be like, so $300 and he's like, you're gonna pay me $300?
Like, cool.
No. But that's the thing, and I also had that conversation. I've never met like any women like true. I've never done. I did 20 minutes of the dating app thing, and I sat here, just like I can't do this. This isn't how people should meet. It's not natural. It's weird. It's how do you know if it's like looking through a fucking what do you call it, the shopping guides? The big old books that you used to get,
like Sears and Roebuck.
Booty, Sears catalog.
Booty mag.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, I'll pick her. I'm like, what? I was like, no.
That's a thing. Having been in bands and playing with female musicians and stuff like that, and just seeing how they work on the road and travel, and it's like you start thinking of them as like team members, that kind of thing. So, but the women in the audience, and it's such a different thing. It's such a weird dynamic, And I mean, I don't know, man. If everyone knew how to deal with each other better, there would be far less divorce. There'd probably be far less marriages too. Because I mean, the way I am at this point in my life, after all these bands I've been in, all the records I made that haven't been released, all the relationships I've been through that I ultimately ended up failing miserably at, but learning lessons.
Me too, 100%.
Yeah,
I am 100% a failure.
I know, man. I tell you, my last, obviously my marriage anyway. It was a kind of a subconscious. It was a conscious effort to prove to myself that I wasn't a self-absorbed, typical musician jerk, and that I could put someone else's needs above my own. And I definitely learned that, and I definitely achieved that. And I learned how to be, if anything, a good parent.
Oh, wow.
Because I had definitely had more of a daughter than I did a wife.
Oh, wow. That's a good...
She knows.
Oh, if you need this for legal purposes, please email me at TheTriggermanPodcast@gmail.com. So, wow. I was like, well, you have kids? No. That was...
no, I wanted one, but I don't think that's going to happen now.
No, I never wanted them. So
unless I retire in Italy and find a girl like half my age, which is my plan.
That's possible.
Yeah.
Just buy a nice, small, little, shiny car, fucking sip wine and eat bread and olive oil and get some really tanned, nice 22-year-old that's like, oh, Gregory, I want your babies.
It'd be nice.
It's just like, hey, live the dream, you know?
Raise some horses and get some kids to shovel the shit. There you go.
It's like, that's the reason. Is like, no, I need kids to shovel horse shit. Like,
I do.
So, yeah.
I do. Well, I did a lot of that as a kid. I grew up on a farm. So.
No, me too. Like,
Yeah.
so that's the weird part. I was like, like people like I am guilty of this as well. Like the preconceived thoughts you have when you meet people or you see people or whatever like that, and I'm totally guilty of it. But people, when I hear what they thought of me, like one of my best friends is the best story, and he just thought I was another tattooed guy liner wearing douchebag in Hollywood, and I was like, yeah, I can see that. It was like, I can't even fault you. And I was like, all right. And like most musicians, I'm not gonna lie, like present company excluded, like I don't hang out with musicians. I don't like it's normally is about like, oh dude, bitches and fucking drugs and cocaine. I'm like, I just told you before, like I've never done drugs. I was always too afraid, but and I never got to really super indulge in the bitches.
Yeah.
So inverted commas.
Yeah. Well, I think growing up, I grew up in Michigan, and you're like 5 months of the year is like sub-zero temperatures,
Oh, yeah.
and you have a lot of time to ponder and a lot of time to do things. Luckily, I had music, and we had recording studios. We had basements, which was something we don't have here. In Northern California, you see some once in a while. So we would just literally just like grab a sheet of acid, as much weed as we could carry, shitty weed with seeds in it, whatever pop off crappy vodka we could like steal from the local store, or what my older sister or her friends could buy for me for $10.
That's hilarious.
And we'd party because there was nothing else to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd go out and play hockey once in a while, or something like that, or what we would do is we'd get a keg the one day and we'd drink as much as we could, and then the next day we'd go out in the snow, dunk the keg in the snow, everyone dress up, play snow football, beat the living crap out of each other, and just drink beer all day until the keg was gone. That was fun. That was a good thing to do in the winter. But it gets, when it's 35 below zero, it's not really, you can't touch any. You're just like,
except beer.
Beer you can still do.
It kind of warms your blood. So, it might as well have been an Olympic sport for. I didn't really drink till I was nearly 18 because I was terrified as well.
Yeah.
I was terrified of everything. But once that started, that was pretty much me all the way through near the end of my 20s. And everyone at home was just like, there's nothing to fucking do. And it's raining all the time and cold. And it's just like...
Yeah,
and we had our clubs and our music and our basement clubs and all that stuff. And did our show. Like, I wouldn't change any of it. But, like, I feel like I lost probably 15 years there. So just...
Hey, I've been the same person since about eight years old. When my parents split, I remember walking outside in the wintertime to take care of the trash, and I just kind of had this realization, like, I'm the man of the house.
Oh no!
I'm 8 years old, and I'm the man of the house.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, Legos and Army Men. I know I'm dating myself. Legos and Army Men are no longer part of the equation.
What? No.
So I started learning how to fish and do man stuff, and it's weird. I kind of had to grow up early, and then I started playing in bands really early too. So I had to I was exposed to things you aren't supposed to see for another 15 years, and then my older sister took me all these shows of like this classic and classic era of hard rock and metal, like
what,
like 1980 through like mid 80s, and then I had it's everything from vintage Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and Motorhead, AC/DC Back in Black tour, all that really formative Van Halen, Fair Warning. I saw that. I mean, the next day I bought a guitar. I saw some stuff. I'm old, so I'm old enough anyway. Well, I didn't. I missed out on stuff that was probably even more of an influence, like Hendrix and the Doors and Pink Floyd and stuff like that.
No, then you're old.
Then I'm old, but it was obviously I was a zygote maybe at that point. I grew up early, and luckily, because I grew up in a town of like 3,200 people in the middle of nowhere.
Sound very similar to me. Okay,
yeah, I mean, literally like 3,200 people. I think my graduating class was like 126 people.
Yeah, exact same as me.
And I mean, you knew everybody. And luckily, I'd come out after my parents split. My dad moved out here, and I'd come out here every summer.
How old were you then?
Oh, I was 8. I'd started coming out here about when I was like around 10 or so. I'd come out and spend all summer in California, which was the wrong time to come to California. I should come out here in the winter.
Yeah, no shit.
But school is happening. The thing is that I almost moved out here from Michigan before I started high school. If I could actually go back and do it, I probably would have done that. But it was funny because story. Funny story. A old music store that used to be on Ventura Boulevard is a place called the Bass Center. I think there was one in London as well, and there was one I think in Seattle for a while. That was Bass Northwest, but none of them are there anymore, I don't think. But my dad trying to keep me here in California before I started high school, took me down there to buy a big old bass rig because I was playing a lot by that time. And walk in there and long blonde hair, a Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon sweatshirt on, and this guy at the front of the desk gives me this hard press. He's like, Kip Winger's coming here to buy an SWR rig next week. And I'm like, I want that. I want the Trace Elliott rig. I want that one. Yeah. And he just wouldn't let me plug into it. Wouldn't let me play it. Why? Kip Winger's gonna buy it. I'm like, fuck Kip Winger and fuck you. I'm gonna have a Pink Floyd shirt on. I want Tony Levin, I want that guy, I want his stuff, and I want this, and John Entwistle from The Who plays it, and he just wouldn't have it. So that guy's the reason why I didn't come to California.
Wow.
Whoever that sales guy was at the Bass Center in like 1984.
I hope you're dead.
Yeah, fuck that guy, whoever he is.
You know what?
And
he's probably in the rainbow right now, fucking slamming shots.
And I don't mean to talk shit about Kip Winger, because I realize he went to Juilliard. He's a studied musician, I'm a winger, whatever. But but at the time I didn't give a shit, and I couldn't care less.
You ruined my life, bro.
Yeah, I was into Cliff Burton and Steve Harris, and at that point, so anyway, that.
So you're like a lifelong bass player then, so.
Well, I started out banging on drums when I was like 7, and I don't have any musicians in my family, and I think a lot of it was just from listening to. I grew up really listening to. After my parents split, my mom was really disco was the big thing. That was like late 70s, so I grew up listening to a lot of Bee Gees, a lot of Saturday Night Fever soundtrack on an 8-track.
Yeah, got some good songs.
It's great. I remember the day that FM radio started, because growing up in Kalamazoo, Michigan, where I was right exactly between Detroit and Chicago, and we were a little bit like a mile or two closer to Chicago, so we picked up WLS, which is WLS Chicago, that was the call. And but I remember hearing it, and everything sounded like this on AM radio. And I remember the day it sounded like this, and Fleetwood Mac Rumors was on, and the Eagles' Long Run was on, and Hey 19 by Steely Dan came on, and it sounded like I was sitting in this chamber, and everything sounded so huge, and it was like, what? And that was my exposure. I remember the day FM radio started, and it sounded like this. I was sitting in this world of music, and it was amazing. I'm glad I grew up then. I'm glad I grew up in the tail end of the 70s and the early 80s, and I got to see like Van Halen instead of seeing the 10 years later, LA hair metal, which I really didn't care for.
You weren't into it?
No, I wasn't at all. I got out of it. I turned into like a jazz snob, started playing upright bass, I turned into a jazz snob, and like anything that wasn't rock. Well, I was a metal guy, and then I kind of got bored with it because there was a lot of screaming and yelling, and there wasn't a whole lot of songwriting and melody. Even though, bands back then could write better songs, I think. The songwriting was still a big equation of it. British Steel's got a bunch of hits on it. Even Iron Maiden back then was writing not such crazy orchestrated pieces, a little more direct, or like Number the Beast, stuff like that. Or, Ace of Spades, that whole album's just, hits, rock and roll. But how things changed. And I learned that, it just wasn't as much range as like when I put a Miles Davis record on my band teacher gave me a stack of Mingus albums, said, go home and learn, listen to this. And I was just like,
learn it. What?
Yeah. Well, it was obviously a lot to take in, but when I started playing upright bass, I really started getting, okay, this is a legit instrument. This is like what real bass players play. And it was a real challenge, and it made my electric playing like, I could play Steve Vai solos on my electric bass because I could. Because upright bass made my hands so strong, and I learned theory, and I learned how to play, and learned how to use a bow, and played cello a little bit before then, but drums is where I started. I went to guitar, I went to banjo, because I had an uncle, but he wouldn't let me play his Martin, so he made me play the banjo.
Makes sense.
Yeah, he wouldn't let me play his Martin. So, but going through that, I got into like, I remember the record that got me, I really started playing electric bass was Paul Simon's Graceland album.
Wow.
And seeing Bikiti Kumalo, who's the bass player on that album, who's ridiculously underrated and one of the most...
I vaguely remember some Paul Simon 80s stuff, the bass.
He caught a lot of flack for that record, and I get it to a degree, but they invited him to come play with them and write music with them. Am I too loud or too quiet?
You're good.
Okay.
I'm just checking.
Am I talking too much?
Yes, that's good. This is a podcast.
Well, I remember just seeing the concert they did in Johannesburg, giant crowd, and and I think Apartheid, I can't remember because I was kind of a kid still then, and you're not exactly politically aware at that point. really. You might know who your president is, and you don't know really. You read about how, at least in the States anyway, you have 3 branches of government, and you get it shoved in your head every year, and you're like, and you kind of pay attention to it. But I mean, seeing all these people in South Africa celebrating and playing this amazing music that was theirs, like being reintroduced to them by a pale little guy from New York, playing with them, and it was amazing. This bass player was playing melody, bass, and like the hooks of the song all at once, and it was just like, holy shit. And that was the guy who actually got me playing electric bass really again. And then a few years later, this gal, I don't remember how I met her. I think we just probably did a lot of drugs together and partied.
Always the start of a good story.
It's booze and drugs. It breaks the ice. But she was infinitely hipper than I was, and she's the one who introduced me to like Jane's Addiction on their first tour, and she's the one who took me to see. And it was a pivotal moment. Seeing Soundgarden, like,
you bastard,
like maybe 3 years into their existence.
Oh my god!
And I remember seeing it was like maybe '87, maybe.
So it's the first album.
It was before the SST record, before Ultra Mega OK came out, and I remember seeing Chris singing, them playing, and it was just like, okay, this Japanese guy on bass, this crazy looking Indian guy on guitar, and whatever Chris looked like, exotic, crazy dude who sounded like Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, singing, and then Cameron who's just out of control good.
White guy,
yeah. He looks like a 12-year-old kid for the rest of his life.
With
I think.
his like step,
with his little, with his bob cut.
Yeah.
And they were a really unique band. Yeah. And then hearing Chris sing "Far Beyond the Wheel," and I just was like, and and I already been into Zeppelin and hearing Robert Plant sing flat half the time.
But no,
and I loved it.
No comparison. Oh no, don't get me wrong. I love Zeppelin as well, but no comparison. I'm sorry.
But hearing that, which was like from his lowest octave to 4 octaves above, and sounding like an Indian classical vocalist, and I was just like, holy shit.
He is still to this day my top 2 favorite singers ever.
There's just some people that him and Sam Cooke.
We're talking about Chris Cornell for any idiots out there. Jesus.
Well, I mean, had I not seen him sing that, there's a really good chance I wouldn't have got back into rock music.
Fuck.
I mean, there's a very good chance I wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't have signed any record deals. I would have stayed a jazz snob, playing anything, just playing anything that wasn't hair rock.
What was it? Rock musicians, they play 3 chords to 2,000 people. Jazz musicians play 2,000 chords to 3 people.
Yeah,
yes, dad joke.
Well, that's the thing that that's why I'm probably such a big Miles Davis fan though too, because no matter how outside he got, there was always the blues in that. And that's one thing he always said is I always keep the blues in this. Kitty.
Yes, Cat.
So and I mean, and even when he got really outside, it always still had that hook in there.
He's doing his fucking.
Oh.
Kev's
I
doing
miss having pets.
This is my asshole plug again. Sorry to everybody watching. I'll censor that part. Yeah, so no, it's weird. Like I first really getting into Soundgarden. I was late. I maybe I was like 17 in college. So I don't know what age. What was that? Like 99? That was kind of really late. But
it was after they broke up.
Yeah, that's the worst part. Like, so, and I got like Down on the Upside, that album,
amazing
and
record.
Then I was like, all right, buy another one, and I had to transfer it to cassette so I could have it in my Walkman. So like again, I'm not old, but I'm from a time of tape.
I am too. I still have cassettes. I still have my vinyl. I don't think I have any 8 tracks left because that was such a terrible format.
I never even knew. There was something in the movies I heard of.
They're hilarious. So, they'd be in the middle of a song and they would just go like click, and then they'd be like fade slowly back in. Like
you hit a speed bump or
something.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
That was the best part.
It was. They were pretty funny. A terrible format. And then you had all these cars from the 70s that had 8-track players.
But they had the cartridges, right? I just saw them in movies.
It was about yay big, about a little bit like the size of
brick,
like a beta, like the size of like a beta tape. If you're VHS and beta.
No one knows.
Okay. Anyway, it was a terrible format. But it was predecessor to the cassette tape, which was still a terrible format as well.
It was horrible. And then I got into mini disc, so I had to transfer all my. When I discovered mini disc, I was like, wait, I can fit 4 Alice in Chains albums on one mini disc, and that's what I did. And then I had my Soundgarden mini disc, and fucking look, Kev has a new best friend. This is disgraceful, unbelievable. But when I heard that for the first time, and then one of my friends found Temple of a Dog.
Oh yeah.
And then fucking again, I went down. I became a massive. I was a massive Pearl Jam 10 fan. Like the rest of it's all right, it's all good, but like 10 was my That's my top 5 favorite albums all time ever written. Like, so it's perfection front to side, and I don't like baritone singers. That's the fucked up part.
I'm going to say it because I know some people might not recognize it, but he can thank Chris Cornell for his entire career.
Oh, fuck yeah.
I mean, and he can. And, you know, that's one thing I will say for Chris, and I'll say the same thing about, like, Stevie Ray Vaughan, who I was fortunate enough to talk to a couple times, and Jaco Pastorius, we never got to meet, but they always talked about their influences. They always someone would give them a compliment, they would give it to, hey, you know, Stevie Ray Vaughan, I was able to talk to him one time after a show. I was really drunk.
Wow.
He was super nice, little guy. I was just like, I love your playing.
Little guy, big strings.
Well, he's a monster and such a soulful cat, you know, and he said, you know, it's all about the kings, about the, you know, Albert King, B.B. King, you know, Freddie King, sorry, another Texan. And he, you know, he's a Hubert Sumlin. He would just start talking about all the people he gleaned off of, and obviously a big nod to Hendrix and Buddy Guy too, you know. And same thing with Chris. He would just, you know, I remember one of the times I saw them over the Download Festival, and this was when they opened up.
Jesus, I've never fucking heard that.
Oh, I saw them more than any other band I've probably seen.
God, you son of a bitch, get out of my house.
You know what? You know, and I'm really, and I never saw a bad show. I've heard people bag on, boring, or he didn't sing well. It's like, you know what?
You're out of your fucking mind.
I never heard him not just rip the living shit out of it.
Yeah, like I call it like full vocals, like, so like proper. That's where I rip off guys like Chris Cornell and Patton, and my favorite singers like Whitfield Crane, like so Ugly Kid Joe. And then I'm a metal guy as well, but like I love full voice singing. So like when anything I would see of like Chris, it's all this like your body, like his body just from his fucking toes.
That
like,
guy had more chi than anybody, I think.
God, he still makes my fucking skin and hair and everything just curl. I'm just like, oh man, it's. The thing is with him is like he can make a fluffy a little note fucking whatever mess up. It doesn't matter. It's like it's just the energy he embodies is like the energy he's like fucking putting out is just, and that's, dude, when I'm fucking singing, that's what I want. I want my body to rattle like when I'm fucking doing it. Like,
it's something you can't phone in.
It's you either have it or you do not. Like, I'm not saying I have it, but he had it 100%. End of story.
Yeah.
Just what a fucking power. Like.
Well, one moment he could sing like he could sing a phone book and make it sound amazing.
Yeah.
But I've been working with a Soundgarden tribute group.
Oh yeah.
Lately, just to keep our chops up, because when none of us are gigging, obviously. But I mean, okay, what's the hardest stuff besides like Miles Davis, Frank Zappa, or King Crimson to play?
Yeah.
Or Charles Mingus, you know, it's like really heady stuff, you know, or really technical metal stuff. Like, well, Soundgarden, great songs, and possibly hard to sing properly and convincingly, and you can't, it's not the kind of thing where you can like phone that in. Every time you have to perform that like it's the last time you're going to perform it, because that's how he sang. I mean, to me, it's like he was a combination of someone like Sam Cooke, who had that breakup and that soul. He was a soul singer. He was a soul singer, and but he's like Sam Cooke meets Ronnie James Dio. The combination of those two guys.
Beautiful.
I mean, just like that sweet, like perfect ethereal, like, you know, voice to this, like someone's just like stuffing razor blades down his throat, you know, but still that super in tune screaming. that's
dude. I literally spoke to the guy that recorded my last single last week. I was talking about you the other day to these guys. He goes, it's like weird because I don't register an autotune, which I'm super proud of, like, because I learned from those guys like that raspy in tune screaming and fraying, like, so just awesome is what I call it, like. But he's like, I was telling these guys, because like he's modern, everyone now they auto-tune everything, and people don't know how to fucking sing anyway. So
you gotta get it.
It's just like, I'll just fix it in post. I was like, no, how about you fucking learn how to do it, dickhead? Like, you know, I was so happy. He's like, I can't. I can't register you won't pick up in the autotune. So, and I looked at him and goes, you just need me to do it right. I goes, go, okay, give me 2 takes, we're good. Like, so, do you know who I fucking listen to, bro?
Well, that's the thing, man.
I give credit to all those guys.
Exactly, you know, and that's the thing. And coming from, and I've been doing it lately. I've been doing a lot of recording during this downtime, and a couple of things I've done is live to tape. You know, jazz, like free form jazz stuff, like writing it on the spot. And it's like you have to commit, and you have to know what you're doing. And if you don't, it's going to be very apparent to the people listening that do know. You know, so it keeps you honest, that's for sure. You know, and I think you owe it. I think, you know, there's a point where, you know, technical virtuosity is awesome, But there's a fine line you got to walk where it's still appealing to people who aren't musicians, because most of the people who are in your audience aren't musicians.
No, not at all. So,
and it looks impressive. It sounds impressive, I guess, but they can't walk away humming something that's like, woo! Okay, it's like, what the hell is that?
I don't think people are stupid, but going back on what you're saying is like with the modern kind of stuff, because I'm not in a scene. I guess I revolve. I orbit roughly a scene of certain music and metal or hard rock.
Yeah.
But I know they're not doing it. I know when I'm listening to the records, I know you can't do that.
Yeah.
For a fact, like I know, because it's just like you listening to like probably I can't jazz. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like that, but I know you can't do it.
Well,
like,
there's periods of it that I like more than others, and and there's like fusion. I have no taste for it. Probably my favorite record of all time is Miles Davis' "Bitches Brew," which is like for me the birth and
what's it
death.
called?
Bitches Brew.
Bitches Brew.
It's frightening. It's some of the most primal music you'd ever hear.
All right.
It was like they were all completely tripping balls the whole time, like heroin and LSD, and but it was also, as far as my knowledge goes, Miles and Tio Macero, who was the producer, that's when they started just improvising, cutting all this tape, and then they would cut loops, and they actually started looping, which was what basically. That was the first known looping that I know of, other than tape delay stuff like Les Paul, that kind of thing. But where they would like find sections that were really musically cohesive, and then Miles would loop it, and then would solo over it, and so it was like the beginning basically of hip hop. It was the beginning of It was like basically the beginning of what would lead into jazz giving birth to like the idea or the way to construct hip hop or rap music, which is cutting loops, cutting beats. And now the way everyone records albums for the most part, doing loops and beats. How Nevermind was, a loop. Same thing
over and over again. Yeah.
But that's that from what I know, and I like to think I know quite a bit about music history.
Yeah.
Having been informed by a lot of people much older and much more wiser than myself. That was the first place that was utilized, and because it was so just like drugged out and like so free for all, they had to find pieces of music that made the most sense. And so he could play melodies like he does over the top of it, and have
Can you imagine being in the room listening back there like, what the fuck are we doing?
Imagine how much time. Well, people had the luxury of time back then to make a record. And Miles was successul, and he was supported by Columbia Records. Which
what year is this?
This is like late 67, 68.
Wow.
So it's like right before. Right before Woodstock, really, and right before Hendrix really hit, and I know Jimmy was really like hit Miles heavily, and I know from what I've heard, the Jimmy was going to start working with Miles before he passed, and that would have been the be-all end-all as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But that's what kind of led to Miles's 70s explorations into what became the Manhattan Jungle Symphony, which was basically like Hendrix with Miles. A couple guitar players playing wah-wah guitar and freaking out, and more Al Foster on drums playing more like fusion beats. Where jazz drumming isn't heavy on the kick drum, but it started being more like rock beats.
Yeah.
And that was like fusion then. Bitches Brew was kind of for me the birth and death of fusion. I don't want to hear anything after that. I mean, there's other
check
bands.
This out now.
I
probably won't even understand it though. That's the thing.
Oh well, you'll hear it, and it's heavy. It's heavy, but it's like frightening. It's like, I would say it's like nightmare music. It's like music that's if you could go to sleep and have a nightmare, it would sound like the soundtrack to a nightmare. But at the same time, it's frighteningly beautiful. It's super dark and really scary. It's like the music of like how like life came to happen on Earth.
Jesus Christ.
It's like really primal sounding shit. It's heavy, man.
That's awesome.
And well, they were totally on a subconscious level. I mean, they were whacked out on heroin and acid and all kinds of stuff back then.
I don't want to do that part though.
Well, the thing is, they did it for you. Just read a Carl Jung book and don't eat for 3 days. You'll get the same effect. That was the thing. So yeah, I mean, another tangent, but anyway.
No. Go back to the Vedder fucking owing his career to.
Well,
Chris.
I mean, no one knew who the hell Eddie Vedder was until Hunger Strike, and that was Chris going, "Hey man, sing this part on this song for me." And I wish Chris would have done that whole record with Soundgarden, honestly, because I'm a much bigger Ben Shepherd fan, because he's a genius and his biggest influence is Mingus. I mean, that guy's a super underrated bass player. People have no idea, and he changed their songwriting when he joined. They went from here to, they became way more commercially successful.
That's the white guy with the floppy hair.
That's the crazy. That's Ben's a bass player. Matt Cameron played drums on that album because he played with those guys. I guess
No, the other bass player.
The guy who got fired from all the Seattle bands. Not Newstead.
Don't do drugs.
Well, I think it was kind of tough to get along. He was in Soundgarden for a while, and he played on Bleach. God, Brian, my really good friend who grew up in Seattle, grew up in Bellevue with Lane Staley, and did all the drugs with him through high school. He was one of my best friends.
I want to talk about that.
Well, he's Brian Murphy. He's a very Irish guy.
Good Irish name.
Yeah, he grew up literally in Bellevue with Lane, and they had a habit together.
Wow.
And the last time Brian and I were on tour, we were in the Bangkok Five together. He was a guitar player, and he and I were the main songwriters in that group.
Yeah.
And last time we were together on tour in Seattle, we went to Capitol Hill to the one bar that would actually advance Lane money to get drugs.
Oh my God.
Because his management was Susan Silver at the time, was Chris's wife at that time.
Oh my God. Wow, this is a great story.
Put the word out, like, don't give Lane cash unless you want him to get fucked up and maybe die. Try to keep him from hurting himself. Because we'll get back. We'll keep going in loops. The Alice in Chains thing is what gave me the gift of harmony. I'm not a very accomplished musician. I'm able to write songs. I'm able to fix it, or I'll have my friend play. But singing, I feel like I was a choir boy, so I was I feel like. But that band gave me the gift of harmony. Yeah.
And I always joke, you can put a cat in a trash can and throw it down the hill. I can harmonize the sound. I can do it vocally. So it's those bands between Chris being so powerful and then Alice in Chains being just they're the harmony kings. They're just, and it's so dark and beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's just that's my language.
Yeah, and a lot of Lane came from Mark Lanigan. And Jim Morrison. I get this. Don't like Mark Lanigan, and I can't stand Jim Morrison. It's so funny.
My influences are influenced by people that I can't stand, and that's always the way as well.
Well, that's the thing. The Doors are a really, really polarizing band. I mean, I love the Doors. I think they're the most original American band ever.
I get it. I totally get it. But
I see why people don't like them too. But Jim fucked with people.
Yeah.
I love that.
The Lizard King. Shut up.
But you count that. I know people who hate the Clash. I like most of the Clash.
I'm indifferent with the Clash.
Yeah, there's some people. If you didn't grow up during that time, it won't hit you the way it did. When the British economy collapsed and punk rock happened.
I was never a big punk Sex Pistols. All that shit. I'm going. Nah.
See, I love that album. To me, is the best recorded punk album of all time.
Which one?
Never mind the Bullocks.
It
sounds so fucking good.
Yeah,
it's not recorded as much as I love The Damned. The records sound terrible, but punk rock wasn't supposed to sound good.
It wasn't meant to be good.
It didn't matter. It was the energy and the message and the vibe, and that's what really counts.
I got the premise. I like that. I got it. I'm indifferent because it didn't resonate with me at all. So for some reason, the grunge era or something really hit me because it's beautiful, but it's so dark.
Yeah, it is. Well, it was a harkening back to the late '60s thing, but not the hippie thing. It was more like the Detroit thing, like MC5 and the Stooges, and Patti Smith, and the really cool shit that came out of Detroit at post Motown peak.
Yeah, they always wear the shirts. That's the only way I would have ever heard of all those bands as well. I would have never known about them.
And that stuff was amazing, and massively influential. Jim, Iggy, was all about the Doors, and he wanted to be on Elektra, and then they ended up signing Elektra. And without the Doors' influence on him, that the Iggy Pop probably wouldn't have happened. And all that goes back to Howlin' Wolf, who was just, I get chills just saying his name.
Keep going backwards. Who does it all start with? Get back to the start. Go. You're on a roll.
Well, some would say Howlin' Wolf. Some people would say obviously Muddy Waters. You talk to Billy Gibbons. Says Muddy Waters invented electricity. And he. Billy Gibbons is one of my favorite musicians. And I love ZZ Top. Their first four albums in particular. For me, the first four Van Halen albums. If you don't listen to those four, you don't like rock and roll.
Do you believe the beard story that it was an accident, that they all came back after a year or two break and they all had long beards?
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that movie, or that little clip that they did. That was really cool. And it's funny, the guy named Beard is the only one who didn't have one.
Yeah.
What a great band. How many bands still have the original members in them? And they're still alive.
Yeah, I know, it's nuts. They must be in their 70s easily.
I think so. They have to be. They got to be my folks' age, I would think. But Billy Gibbons was Hendrix's favorite guitar player when he passed.
Wow.
Well, when they were called the Moving Sidewalks, and that's what they were called when they used to open for Hendrix. Back in the day, the Hendrix Experience.
All right, keep going backwards. Go again.
Well,
Come
I mean,
on.
a lot of people will say Robert Johnson,
Okay.
which was devil music, which is great, but that's the thing.
You may start telling me who these people are now because you're going back too far.
Well, that's like late 20s.
Oh,
and then
God.
you had people before him. One guy that sticks out to me because he's dirty, filthy son of a bitch. Like the first porn rock guy.
Yeah.
Well, he was a blues guy, but his guitar playing was really advanced. And it was like, well, for one thing, it was in tune, which is odd for back then because most of the blues guys were pretty poor and they couldn't afford decent instruments a lot of times, unless they made a little money, which would come a lot later usually, or they never see it. But a guy named Bo Carter, if you ever want to listen to some really pornographic blues music,
This is pre-1920s?
this is Bo Carter I think may have been after. I think he's after Robert Johnson.
Okay.
I'd really have to verify that. I don't have a timeline for sure, but
I'm going to have the asshole YouTube comment.
Yeah,
It's like,
well,
dude,
it's-
you're so fucking wrong. That was 1932.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Well, it all goes back to blues. That's why I'm a big fan of probably my favorite city in the United States is New Orleans.
Well, you going to say black people?
Well, I love black people. I wouldn't. I wouldn't have a life.
No, I can't.
I would. I readily admit my appropriation level. I learned how to play music with black people.
Yeah.
And I've been able to play with guys from Fishbone and like P-Funk and to sit up there as a white guy and playing P-Funk songs.
Did you get the seal of approval?
Dude, I've never once, when I was a kid, I played in this place in Kalamazoo, which was a bar called Messiah's Working Man's Bar. I was like 19, and I was playing in the house band, doing some stuff, and everybody who came through Detroit and Chicago, I got to sit in with, and a lot of times I was the only white person in there, and I never caught a sense of racism towards me or be like, get out of here kind of thing. What the hell are you doing? It was so inclusive.
Yeah.
I never got any kind of vibe because I guess I hung well enough that even as a kid I just had big ears and I could mimic what was going on. I had a good idea where to pick out pitch and play along. And I was playing bass, so it was just like just groove with the drummer, watch the guitar player's hands, watch the left hand of the piano player, so so they're not stepping on you and you're not stepping on them.
Wow.
So there's things I learned just instinctively because I
It's
was
like the
lucky.
mechanics of it.
Well, it's just being aware, and listening, and I was playing a lot of times fretless bass, or something like that. So I was just trying to sound legit inside that music form, and I never caught flack for it, and I feel really, and the same thing I can say with like Latin music. Having been able to play a lot of like rock and Espanol stuff, and I got to play a couple cuts on a Julio Iglesias record.
Wow.
And a guy who's no longer with us, Robbie Rosa, who was one of the original members of Menudo, he's the one who wrote all the music for Ricky Martin's big breakout album.
Holy shit.
And I was working in the studio at the time where I was, making a record with one of my old bands, Bird, which I actually have another record coming out very soon. We kind of got back together last year after like 20 years of we had an interesting breakup. But anyway, I was in the studio and he literally had to stand me up because we were playing something, a Cuban groove called dansong, and I didn't understand the rhythmic, like the rhythmic pulse to it or the accents where they're placed traditionally speaking in that. And you're going to be on a record, you better play it.
Yeah.
And I was the guy who had a bass there, so I'm the bass player.
Yeah.
I got it by default. And he was the other Robbie's like, I don't want to play bass on this. And he literally stood up and danced with me to get me to get the pulse of it and
shit,
to get the
no
action.
way.
And he's like grabbing my hands and like
That's
dancing.
awesome.
I'm like, okay, I get it. I feel it now. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And that was like such an honor. I mean, my mom was a big Barry White fan and a big Barry Gibb fan,
wow.
but she didn't know anything about Julio Iglesias. You grew up in Michigan, you probably don't know a lot about Latin music.
Yeah, no shit.
Unless you
right?
really search it out. And it
Minus
wasn't-
35.
Well, it wasn't on
no
radio.
one's doing fucking the Latin dances. Right?
Yeah.
You're like,
But just, that was such a great thing that to have, someone trust you enough that you're with your skill set that you could pick it up like that and to approach it in a humorous way where some people would be uncomfortable with that. I'm like, well, yeah, I get it. If you can dance to it, that's the thing is like,
no rhythm. Like,
in music, whatever it is, if you're thrashing your fucking head and playing metal, then you get where the rhythmic pulse is, and it's really important to get inside the rhythm and get inside the culture if you can, if you're lucky enough to understand the ins and outs of it, like getting to play reggae. I got to play reggae with actual Rastafarian guys, and they were super cool, and they like took the time. It's sometimes hard to understand some of the heavy accent, but it was super cool to just to have them include you. I mean, I feel super fortunate that that's happened all through my life.
The best compliment I've worked with like lots of pretty pop famous producers, and I've worked with tons of musicians and all that, and everyone's like, oh dude, you're very like, again, not don't ask me to play a drum solo, can't. Don't ask me to do a guitar solo, can't. I'll do my vocals, and I'll always get like, oh dude, that was so good, thank you very much. But the one time I got to it was for a project, I got to hire a singer, and I was like, it was just like, it wasn't what I think. I was like, I want a black lady to sing with me, and it goes, what? And it goes, so I'll put the feelers out, one of my friends, another Irish girl, knew another woman, Caddison is her name, and she's like this big black lady, and her voice, and I was just like, orgasmic. And we did these I can't remember the studio, it's over in Atwater, the big rehearsal studio.
It was Third Encore. Well, that's not Third Encore, it was Swing House.
So
I don't think it's there anymore. I think it's
really?
I love that
Phil
place. Who ran it, I don't think I don't know if it's still. I would think it's still going, but I don't think Phil is actually running it anymore.
Shit. Oh well, we did the big professional room or whatever. Had the engineer, and like we did a full 2 runs of this album I wrote, and I wrote monster harmonies, so
that's
none
awesome.
of the guys could sing them, but this beautiful big black woman like just like
walks in,
came in and goes like, she's so cool, funky hair, and she's like, I got it, don't worry honey, I got it, and all this. So I was like, all right, and we did it. And she just starts belting all my harmonies, and I'm singing, and that made me sing better. And then at the end of it, she came over to me and goes, "You are so good." I was like,
great,
"Oh my god, I'm so."
I gotta tell you, man, I'm just playing in an original rock band. In the last couple of years. It was a few years ago now. I was playing in this place in Hollywood, and it's one thing to really be recognized by people. The people whose culture you're essentially appropriating, and to have them go, it's like legit, and I'm like, thank you, thank you. Well, it's like that's one reason why I love New Orleans so much, because for me it's like it's a different place than the rest of the South. It's a different place than any other city in the United States. It's the most European place I think I've ever been.
Mosquitoes, can't do it. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I grew up there. I grew up in mosquito. Michigan's like
not doing
a swamp. So there's giant mosquitoes there. But yeah, they suck, literally. But for me, it's like the cultures that you had the Spanish inhabited New Orleans, the French obviously inhabited New Orleans, the native tribes who were from that area. I mean, obviously the slave trade and what that brought there and everything, as terrible as it was, that place created the Western culture, and went up the Mississippi to Chicago, went everywhere else, and that's what became the whole last century.
Yeah, my only part of New Orleans I like is when those bands are blasting, and you just walk in, stand in the back of the bar, and listen to a few songs, go on to the next. That's like my favorite part, but it smells like piss and vomit. So
it does. Well, that's why you stay off Bourbon Street. My favorite time to go there is actually Halloween. It's the best place to go for Halloween.
Why?
It's just because it's such a spooky, crazy place, and it's such an old city, and there's the tours there that are tourist things are actually really good. Okay. There's like the vampire tour you can do, and they take you to all these places where there's supposedly vampiric activity or ghost stories.
I'm the
and
most
stuff.
cynical person in the world. I'm just like, no.
Well,
no.
I went there.
I would ruin the tour.
It was really cool though, and there's a lot of places off Bourbon Street that are really amazing. Like Royal Street is all art galleries and like really cool stuff. And I mean the food alone. Holy shit! And the people.
I never had crawfish until there. It was like
I'd be walking down the street. I'd be walking down Bourbon, and I'd be hanging out there for like a week or something like that. And I'd have a bartender. This guy would come running out of the place. Hey man, how you doing? I'm like, good. And he's like, you gonna come by? I'm like, yeah, I will. Since you ran across the street to say hi.
It was a massive effort. But
I'm like, I must have tipped better than people usually do or something. But it's.
It's funny. I have a weird love-hate. I more hate thing with New Orleans because I hate mosquitoes. I hate drunk people, and I don't like the piss and vomit smell. But I love sitting in a bar. I went to Nashville for the first time last year, and it was like. It was white people's safari for starters. Like, it was brilliant, but it was so much fun, and it was me and one of my friends, and we wouldn't even talk. We'd just sit there, and I'd watch, like, I've never seen musicianship so good. I still follow one of the there was a girl and a guy with an acoustic guitar, and I went to see them 2 nights in a row, like, 'cause they were singing covers. It is so powerful and beautiful, and I started following them on Instagram, and we all started chatting and stuff. But the fucking musicianship, I was just like, oh my god, I'm fucking shit. I suck. Like, this is terrible.
It can
we
be.
don't have this here. Like, this is like fucking crazy.
Well, the thing about it's the industry. Well, is here. And it's a different thing. It's like you compare San Francisco to LA, like San Francisco music scene, the Bay Area scene. I mean, I lived up in Northern California for a while, and I would go down to the Bay Area, Berkeley, San Francisco, or like Hayward, or Oakland, and it's very different. It's much more music. It's much more muso. It's much more art driven. It's not so industry driven. Obviously, great talents have come out of there, legendary bands, and a lot of really, really amazing musicians. A lot of like acid jazz and like kind of like funky jazz stuff, more groove oriented stuff. But you don't get the industry kind of like, oh, you can't do that. They just like, fuck that, it's like, we'll put our own records out kind of thing. Here it's like people come here for a reason. I never set out to be a rock star. There was a couple points where I almost became one, I guess. Or there was a couple points I could have been one, had to made different choices.
Oh, you signed the deals and fucked them all up, or lost them, or did something bad as well?
Yeah, I've signed somewhere between a dozen and 15 deals over the last 25 years. It's like getting a deal is not the hard thing. Keeping one's the hard thing.
And doing something with it.
That's the thing. And the thing is, A&R people don't keep their jobs by signing people. They keep their jobs by doing nothing. Like kind of like politicians. Well, see, I'm getting paid and I'm not doing anything, so so or then the people who are good at their job and really seek out talent will get the acts they find that are great taken away from them, and they won't get the credit, and then they'll just get shit canned because they don't want to come back and find out that was actually the person who discovered this. It's just so bad. It's just like stab.
It's the music business. It's
music
business. Yeah. It's
very stabby.
No shit. It's kind of. Is there something in my back? It's like, no. That was the biggest. I moved here in 2011-12. I got straight onto a national tour, so I immediately thought, this is it for me for the rest of my life. Then I moved to LA, immediately got in a band with already kind of like inverted commas famous guys. I just replaced a singer with these famous musician guys. I was like, oh, this is it. This is amazing. And then the business came into it. And I realized that I don't kiss people's asses good.
No,
I'm not good at it.
I don't either, man. You don't have to.
Yeah, it's like oh shit, but I'm like, I literally, dude, I'm not. It's not an ego thing, like, because you gotta lose the fucking ego, but
it's a self-respect thing.
Yeah, it's a self-respect thing, and it's like, I am very good, or I am amazing, or I'm very talented, or I have what it takes, but I don't have that. Get down on my knees and fucking. I can't do it. Like, call me a fucking asshole. The amount of things I've been told.
You compare. Being a musician or like being in a band in particular, you have a social structure around you. You have a tribe. You have you have a support group. That's why things like Weinstein happen to actors and actresses, because there's one person who doesn't have that. For me, and I think you would probably agree. Anybody who thinks about it would really agree. The toughest gig there is stand-up comic. That's the toughest. That's the toughest gig.
I can't even get my head around. I love fucking comedy.
It's so important. George Carlin's one of my biggest influences.
God. Not a comedian.
He's
a philosopher.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. I'm just saying.
It's true. And Richard Pryor too. And obviously Chappelle is just like. Pfft.
Oh yeah, modern day philosophers.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I find more truth, from them than anybody. Certainly more than religious leaders. Pfft.
Yeah. I grew up Catholic. I can't do it. So.
I was never baptized. I still have my original sin.
You're going to hell!
Good. I think if there is hell, we're in it right now. Just make the best of it.
I will quote the infamous Ozzy Osbourne. He goes, "I hope I go to hell because that's where all the hookers and drugs will be." So I'm like, all right.
John Entwistle did it right. Died in hookers and blow.
No, you're not baptized, so you're just going straight to hell. So you're fucked. Like, but. That's what we're saying.
Can't be any worse than Gary, Indiana.
Yeah, but no. Oh God! Wow. Shout out Gary, Indiana. What's up?
I had a gun pulled on me for no reason.
They're like, "Welcome. Give me your wallet." So, word of welcoming.
I'm a musician. I don't have a wallet.
Yeah. Do you know who I am? Nobody.
Yeah.
But no, but there's like perks to living in LA like that as well. Like. I do love stand-up comedy, but I can't get my head around it. Like, to get up there and just do it, I'm just like, huh? Nah. But like, the thing is, I listen to so many podcasts a lot hosted by comedians and stuff, and they say the fucking same thing about musicians. So I don't know how you get up there and fucking like.
Well, you have to.
Yeah, it's just, but it's not hard. Though, that's the thing. So to have that kind of skill, or even acting, dude. Actually, I want to get to that. One sec.
Okay.
I think the way I got back in touch with you, or the way I saw you, was you did Rock of Ages.
I'm still under contract.
And I'll be honest, I'm not it's a musical. Like
it's theater. It's a Broadway. It's a Broadway style production that originated at the King in Los Angeles, and then it went on the road and ended up in Broadway for like 6 years.
Okay, so get this. I don't like musicals, but guess what? Went to Rock of Ages and then went, fuck. I turned around to the guys, I think I like musicals. It was unfucking believable.
Well, the guys in the band are all phenomenal, and the cast is so talented.
Stupid.
So talented.
I'm very sorry to hear about. I can't remember his name. I'm so sorry.
Nick Cordero. Yeah.
You don't have to.
No, it's okay. No,
sorry.
I'm okay about it. I mean, I'm fine. You know, I'm still here. You know, I'm just glad I met the guy. I'm glad I got to work with him for the brief
Just
moment.
for anyone that is listening, like Nick was one of the main characters in the.
He played
Rock
Dennis
Rages.
Dupree, the bar owner, the bourbon room owner.
Yeah,
in,
and he
in
was
Rock
like
Rages.
he was like 40 or 41.
41.
And he was like he got coronavirus really bad, and he unfortunately passed away. And I don't know him. I know, like, I just felt I honestly I didn't realize how many people we all knew together, and so many of my friends were upset about it. And I was like, I'm not getting, this is not a coronavirus thing, but like, fuck, like it's like it hit home because it's entertainment. It's within a crowd of people I know, and just
he didn't have any pre-existing conditions that I'm aware of.
Yeah, here we go with the conspiracy theories. No, fucking no. I fucking, that's why it makes me angry, dude. I have to stay away from this. Like the coronavirus, like, oh no, fuck that. This is like, it's not a conspiracy theory.
Well,
like,
people could be asking us why we're not wearing masks right now.
Well, because we made out earlier and we realized that no, we're fine.
We'll die together.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. I mean, you know, the saddest thing is that I can think of is he has a son that just turned 1.
Yeah.
And he's not going to know his dad, but he'll know. But the thing is, because of technology and the way things are now, he'll get to see his father in, because Nick did so many other productions and, you know, worked with like De Niro and Chaz Palminteri and did all this stuff. He's a Tony nominated actor. His amazing wife is, you know, so I feel terrible for her, you know.
I don't even know these people.
Well,
I was like watching.
I've never
it all
met her
happening.
myself. I know of it, and you know, Maddox, who got me involved, Michael Maddox, who got me involved in the play. He was I was at the Bourbon Room today picking up equipment from there, and he was there, you know, running a stream, doing some streaming performances there. They're still trying to do stuff there as much as they can. And you know, he would go over to Amanda, which is Nick's wife, and he would take out Elvis, who's his son, and take him out for a walk every day. And you know, it's just, you know, I knew Nick for less than a year, and the thing is, I know where he's from in Canada, and growing up in Michigan, Canadians are the nicest people in the world, and I knew where he was from in town because I know Ian Asbury too, having opened up for the Cult a bunch of times. They were both from Hamilton, Ontario, and the fact that I knew that about him, I was like, dude, I've been to your little town. I know where you're from. He's like, what? And he was the best thing you can say about Nick Cordero, besides his talent, obviously. He was just the best dude. He just was such a good guy, and he's one of those people that if you're lucky enough to meet him in your life, that you feel like you've known them your whole life.
Oh man,
he's just that kind of guy.
Jesus Christ, I'm so sorry.
Well, you know, I mean, at least I got to meet him. You know, I feel sorry for the people who didn't.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm so happy I got to see. That was like what made it special for me, is I got to see your.
Yeah.
I don't like musicals. I watched it, I was like, shit, I think I like musicals, and like the talent that was on the stage is just like, but he was actually one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, he was great.
It was just like him and the main kid were phenomenal.
Yeah, Ian's great.
Yeah.
Ian Brinstall, Matt Wolpe, who plays, you know, the narrator.
My god, he's so good.
He is that character, and Nick was Dennis Dupree.
I kind of felt that though. That's why my brother's a theater actor, so I want to watch him. I'm like going, Jesus, I don't have whatever that is. That's like some freakish talent.
Well, there's people who, you know, that just are that part, you know. And I mean, and you know, I'm not an 80s hair rock guy, but I get the story, and it's a story about, you know, it's a very familiar one. Anyone who's not from Los Angeles who comes here to try to make it, and sometimes you make it in a different way than what you intend to, you know. And you know,
sometimes you get the girl.
Sometimes you get the girl.
Sometimes you get divorced.
Sometimes you get divorced. Sometimes you end up in debt.
If you need this podcast for legal purposes, no, okay.
Anyway,
call my lawyer. Fuck off.
Yeah, I'm my own attorney. I have a fool for a client. But you know, I mean, I gotta say that play literally has saved my life in the last year and a half.
That's crazy.
It really has. I mean, financially, and the fact it really helped me out. I mean, it helped me out. I mean, it was something to get back into. I'd done theater before. I'd done like Jesus Christ Superstar, did Tommy, which was both great musicals.
I've only heard of them.
They're a blast. I mean, super talented people. Again, working with them. And anybody who's done a theater production knows that it's a pretty hedonistic, crazy kind of scene and vibe. And it's you know, everybody in the production, the Hollywood Rock of Ages production, is amazing people, talented people, caring people. people, loving people, supportive people, and we went through so much to try to get that thing going. It started getting going, and then all of a sudden this came, COVID came on and just smashed it.
Is it going to be back whenever?
Yeah, whenever everything else comes back, It's just, the capacity in the Bourbon Room, I think, was 250 max.
Yeah.
It's not a big place, and the ticket costs are.
It was perfect.
The ticket costs are substantial, but it's immersive, and you're in the middle of it.
Oh no, it was amazing. It was worth every pound. I said it to Jesus, the manager there. Oh my God.
Melody?
Yeah, she's lovely. Like,
yeah.
I messaged her and I was like, "Ma, I need tickets. How do I get them?" He goes, "Just call me. I'll like, what's up?" I'm going again. I don't like musicals. Yeah, well, and then this shit happens, and I was like, "Fuck."
Well, there's moments that are really good, and even being on stage, and I remember, Nick and I would have this aside every night because I was like the person the closest to the stage, right entrance and exit. So I would see him coming on and off the stage, and he'd always look at me like, do some facial thing, and try to crack me up on the side of the stage. And every night he would say something to, greet me, and it was we had this cool rapport on stage because I would see him all the time. I'm standing there because the band's like standing there the whole time, and I'm kind of tucked behind the Pat, who's like 6'6", and Maddox, who's like 6'4". These two big dudes, and I'm like 6 feet maybe, and Kevin, the drummer's in the cubby hole there, and poor Jonathan's up on top of him, and people don't even know he's there, who's running the show. Thank God for that guy. Just every night the same joke. I laughed at every single joke the same night because I got it, and it was part of this great story, and they delivered it well.
The delivery is perfect.
It was natural. It wasn't forced, and it was a level of talent that I didn't see in like collegiate theater things that I did.
I just I'm a performer. Like, I perform when I'm on stage, but I'm performing like, I don't know. I feel like it's an extension of me. So it's like kind of, I wrote it. It's me. It is me.
You're telling your story.
Yeah, I'm telling my story. It's real. But like, watching that is just like kind of, it freaks me out because I'm like, how is that? Like, how do you become something you're not? It's just like the acting thing. It's just very fucking weird. I could do it, but it would be bad. Like,
it's immersing yourself in a character it usually gives people license. It's like performing with a mask on. It's like performing like bands like Slipknot or all this. It's like you can unleash because you have license to, because you're not you. You have a different identity. It's like when I loved playing Halloween gigs, so I would be dressed up or have a mask on, and I just could cut loose, and I didn't have to worry about being apprehensive or attracting too much attention because I'm just a bass player supposed to be in the background.
Well, that was Alice Cooper's philosophy. He goes like, when I'm up there, I can be anyone I want. And I was going, but then at home he's like, I'm a dad. I have a 4 handicap on golf. I like reading books, and I don't drink. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I think I love you. Like, so just like,
he's a great dude.
But again, like talking about like who I would have. Again, I would have stolen all those characteristics from, again, the Chris Cornells for this thing. I loved that philosophy. Like, I love Alice Cooper. Like, I fucking, because it's so theatrical as one. Crazy, but like that's where I would have stolen that philosophy of, when I'm up there, I can be anyone I want. Like, so.
And you can, because people are looking for something in the audience, and this is something that a lot of bands, or that don't have a good manager, or people who can kind of coach them in a way, is like you have to be bigger than life. You have to be a little bit of an egotist. You have to be a little bit of a narcissist. You gotta be someone who's up there, and shoegazing stuff's cool and all. I guess if you want to be like a sad sack, that's fine. That's part of your story. And then there's people like David Lee Roth who are like the opposite end of the spectrum. It's like, like, oh, okay. But I had the fortune of I had the good fortune of meeting Sam Kinison a long time ago, and hanging out with his whole band one day. I worked at this hotel in Michigan, Kalamazoo, before I moved out here, and I was a bartender. And it was funny because I met probably more famous people and got to hang out with them there because I'd spent time in LA, and I'd met some famous people, and so I was kind of not like a fanboy. Everybody from Mr. Rogers to who I met and I served fish to. He was the nicest guy. He was that guy. He was exactly. He goes, "I'll have the fish."
Was he wearing the red sweater?
He was wearing a red sweater. Oh my God. And I was just like, I walk up and I'm like, "It's Mr. Rogers."
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
And he was so Fred, such a nice guy. I don't remember who he was. He's having dinner with somebody. I think he was probably there for a speech or who knows. Because he used to do a lot of, he's politically active, and he's also, an ex-Navy Navy officer, I guess.
Mr. Rogers was?
Yeah, he was ex-Navy,
Holy
ex-Navy,
shit.
yeah. Because he Well, there's a spot where he went. There's a time when he went in front of Congress and pleaded for for funding for NPR and for the funding for the show for Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and for children's programming and PBS. That's what I meant.
I watched this movie.
Yeah, I need to see it. I don't have a TV, so I don't.
What the fuck?
I know. Well,
I've got many. So.
I've got a stack of guitars I have to fix all the time for people who need them. So I spend most of my time listening. But him, I got to meet Mikhail Baryshnikov. I got to hang out all day with Bobby McFerrin and smoke joints and sit by the pool. And I got paid to do that.
Jesus Christ.
Well, because he spent money and he was a guest there. And
what was Sam Kinison like?
Sam Kinison was super calm and super chill.
I don't believe it.
Exactly. Well, he got to exercise the demons on stage. So that's the thing about when you're a performer, you can get rid of. And then I see that's why the appeal for a lot of people about metal and punk music is because you get all that aggression out of you, so you don't have to punch someone in the face.
Yeah. If you don't know who Sam Kinison is, YouTube it. It's fucking.
And his band was super cool, and I just sat down with them at their table, and my food and beverage director was like, "Oh, it's just Greg hanging out with more other musicians, famous people, keeping them here, spending money." I'm like, "I'm hanging out with them because they're cool and they like me." It's like, I'm sorry, dude with the bowl cut who's my boss, you can just piss off for a minute. It's like, and it was funny because the only time I met somebody who was famous who wasn't cool was Lyle Lovett, and he wasn't cool only for one reason. Lyle Lovett's amazingly talented guy. Okay. He was married to Julia Roberts, I think.
Is that what he's talented for?
Well, no, he's a really, really great kind of like progressive country artist.
Okay.
But really great. I mean, more like swing, more like Western swing, and like kind of like 50s kind of more. But he was just super talented, and his band was phenomenal. But it was a dead of winter in Michigan, and he wanted fresh apple pie. I'm like, dude, it's Michigan. It's not,
Or you getting apples?
It's like frozen apple pie, but we don't have it. We got mud pie. He's like, I don't want that. I'm like, I'm sorry, Lyle.
What do you want me to do here?
I'm like, what do you want? I'll pull an apple out of my ass. I can't. But it was funny because back there, it's like, I just didn't expect to meet a bunch of famous people. And but it was fun. I always ended up hanging out with them.
That was me when I first moved here as well. I was like Kevin, he's famous now. Just going, because I did everything that everyone else did when they moved here. You go down to the Sunset Strip, you hang out in the Hollywood bars, you meet the and I was like, oh, weird. I was never taken back. It was always like, I came in with the attitude like, you're my peer.
Yeah,
I'm as good as you.
Well, that's why they live in Los Angeles and New York, because they won't get they won't get brutalized, because people. I'm sure you get your fanboys and fangirls that drive people nuts, but it's fewer than
It is kind of it's almost like frowned upon nearly.
Yeah,
so it's just like
they're just people with a cool job.
Yeah. It's like, holy shit, look at that, that's the guy over there. I was like, don't go over though. Like it's just like, don't fucking. It's weird. Yeah, like again, like the I went to the Rainbow a lot when I first moved here. Kev is just taking over the podcast again. He's got his butthole on my face. The huge, but like it's just seeing when you see like famous people and they're just eating food and drinking a beer. I was like going, never mind.
I was at a party one time in Bel Air for this big record executive person, and I'm like, what am I doing here? And I was in a band. It's the night I met Ross Robinson, actually.
Okay,
we've been really good friends ever since. It's like,
No way, really?
Oh yeah, I work with Ross a lot. I dial in guitars, where I've worked on a bunch of records with him, and I've done sessions with him too as well. And but he was there that night too, and he's sober. He doesn't drugs, and there's like me and my bandmates, and there was the band Bird, and it was me and Bird, who's a singer guitar player, and Miley, who's the drummer in Rival Sons. He was the drummer in that band. And we're hanging out over here, and we're hanging out with all the wait staff because we're drinking and having a good time, and we were the only ones and there's a whole crowd of famous people over here just doing piles of blow and being completely out of their skulls, and we're just over here drinking Jack Daniels and having a good time, and Ross is hanging out with us, and just I remember he asked me a question about a certain band that I won't mention, about joining them, and there's a female artist. I can't even call her an artist. There's a female in the band who's a fucking piece of shit.
I gotta get the name afterwards.
I mean, if I say enough that people will understand. The fact that it's Ross asked me about it, maybe I shouldn't say anything. But I got offered a gig, and I was like, dude, if I'm in the same room with her, I'll stab her in the face.
Oh, wow.
And he laughed. He was like, ah! So we were friends ever since then. But and I know people who've worked with her that did not have anything good to say about her.
There's a lot of those people in this town as well. So
when you have everybody write your own records, then
Well, no, there's the other thing is I learned so much about stuff like that when I moved here. I was like, wait, you guys don't write your own songs? So like, what have I been doing for the last 20 years? Why didn't I just pay somebody?
Dude, I've had people write down things that I've said and turn them into songs. That's
amazing.
I've had lead singers like I will say something to them, and they'll get the credit for saying it. It'll get quoted in LA Weekly or OC Weekly.
Well, that's what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to just take sound bites. Then I'm going to repeat all the stuff you said about Miles Davis and cut you out of it. Like, actually, yeah, in like 1920, there was a real.
Greg's pretentiousness lessons.
Yeah.
No, I'm not being pretentious.
It's not pretentious.
No,
it's interesting.
It's
and
factual.
Well,
and it's influential. I mean, Miles. There's a story about Miles being at, I think, a White House like awards dinner or something like that, and he was a powerful, strong figure. I mean, he was imposing. He was a really good boxer too. When you grew up in East St. Louis, so you had to learn how to fight, or you wouldn't have made it out.
Yeah.
And if you ever want to read a great book about the history of jazz that really matters, read Miles Davis' autobiography. It's amazing. It's a good read for anyone. But he talks about he's sitting down, in this a crowd essentially, and some, I think presidential awards or something like that. I can't remember exactly the details about it. He talks about it in his book, and he's sitting next to some stuffy old white lady, and she's like, "Who are you and what are you doing here?" And he's just like, "I changed music 6 times. What are you doing here?" And he did.
Yeah.
He was like, I mean, every major movement in jazz, really, other than maybe like Charlie Parker and probably Duke Ellington and some of the people that preceded him and influenced him to a degree, or Miles, Mingus, who kind of melded jazz and classical together. Miles was at the forefront the whole time. I mean, obviously Coltrane being another big artist, but Miles really did change music, American music.
Jeez, I gotta listen to some more Miles Davis. I haven't listened really to anything.
It's more accessible than a lot of jazz for a lot of people. Or I mean, if you're gonna get a box set, I mean, well, just start out with Kinda Blue. I mean, it's like that's the jazz album. It's like the last acoustic jazz album ever really recorded before like electric instruments got involved or like electric guitar got involved.
Yeah.
It was all acoustic instruments and recorded. And Paul Chambers, the bass player, is amazing. His bass lines alone are. But I usually suggest to people if they want to learn how to really sing and work on their phrasing and like control their breath, learn Miles's horn lines off there, and learn the sax lines, and just because his tone, try to emulate the tone, try to find how you can change your embouchure and the shape of your throat and your mouth to emulate those tones and to just get a range of tone inside your head. Treat yourself like an instrument, And I mean, I'm not a trained vocalist, but I've sang my whole life, and it's helped me get a lot of gigs being a bass player who can sing as well. And I mean, and just being a functional bass player is a good thing, but when you can play everything and sing, it gets you a lot more gigs than otherwise, So
that was my when I put my band together. Now it was just like, shit, like, can anyone fucking sing anymore? I am a snob when it comes to singing. I'm sorry, like, it's just like I don't mind a 3-chord song. I love it. Simple. If the singing is shit, I can't do it, man. Again, most modern artists, most modern bands, it's all post production. It's all faking it. It's like it's not real. Because I go to the shows or I'll play shows with them, and I'm like,
there's a lot. You hear the backing tracks.
That's not you. What are you doing? It's just like, and I use backing tracks with like synth lines and fucking gang shit and all that. I do it, but all the hard shit, that's me, motherfucker. I don't care.
Well, you want to earn it. I mean, I think you owe your audience. You
100%.
You owe it to your audience to give them their money's worth, whether they're paying or not. But it also, people can tell when you're not, when you're phoning it in, when you're not. Yeah. I remember one band I was in. I remember just looking out to the 15-year-old kids out there, and they've got their arms crossed and looking at my singer, just going,
"Oh wow." You see, they know, man.
Well, they know when and the thing is, that guy could really sing if he took care of himself, wasn't gacked out all the time, and I had to sing his choruses, and because he's like wasn't taking care of himself.
Well, I want to be a rock star, bro. So just like
that's the difference. I never set out to be a rock star. I'm a musician. I've been a musician my whole life, and that's the thing is like because of that, I'm not going to live and die. That's the thing about singers, and that they have to consider. And I've talked to many singers and worked with some really talented ones and some not as talented ones, but it's like. Most singers are cursed to live or die by the band they're in, and it's like it's really hard to have a career after that band either comes or goes. It's because you're married to it, and it's like it's hard to break off. And I mean, Axl's always going to be Guns N' Roses singer. Always, James Hetfield's always going to be, though he plays guitar, always going to be Metallica's singer, or vocalist. And so they can't just go put on a mask and go be Corey Taylor, who's having that mask on and then being able to take it off and gives him more options. He's obviously a really capable, I think a very capable singer.
Yeah, he's actually fantastic.
Yeah, he's really great. And that's the thing, so as your side people, your band members have potential to be employed their whole life if they keep their shit together and improve.
If they're good.
If they're good, yeah. I mean, if they can hold it together, if they write, which is I've always been a collaborator and a writer, so that helps a lot too.
That's me too.
And yeah, I mean, you set out to be a rock star, then you're going to set up to be pretentious, and the thing is, there's going to be people to see through it.
Yeah, I don't have the. Sorry. Get
no.
out of here! How dare you call me?
It's so nice to turn your phone off once in a while.
No, I just like. On the contrary to what people might believe, I don't have the ego for it. Like I don't have that. There's a difference between ego and certainty. Like I'm certain. I'm good enough.
Well, you have to be confident.
Yeah. I bleed it. I ooze it. I'm like, yeah, but like, I've been doing it a long time, and I still never get past a certain point. And I'm aware, like, I'm not stupid. I'm like, bro, it's someone else is holding me back. No, there's something I don't have that the music business, as you said it just they don't like it or they don't want it, or because like I'll give you a funny story, because like again, love Chris Cornell, love all that. I did a A&R show private for a label in LA years ago, and actually I got on best with the guy that owned the label. He's this European guy, and I'm European, so I guess like we just started talking, and he was super nice. He was showing me his car. I loved him. Then there was the guy, the president of the label for LA, and the A&R guy, and they're American as fuck, and they're the guys that are like, oh, we make all the decisions. I didn't get along with them, and they went around the room. The A&R guy positively critiqued everyone. Yeah, I like what you did there, blah blah. And then Jimmy, you got to pick a range. I goes, what? He goes, you sing in too many different keys and ranges. I go, excuse me?
Well, there's 12 notes.
Yeah, I was like, no, because I was doing scream and guttural. I do like the 80s stuff where they kick themselves in the balls and scream. I do all of that, and like the Chris Cornell,
Jeff Tate, that kind of stuff.
You got to pick one. There's too many different singing styles. So I'm like going. I was like,
well, that's someone who sells margarine.
Yeah, I was like, yeah.
That's a marketing guy, and the thing is, that's why it's so important. Whether you're an actor, an actress, a comic, a musician, you have to know who you are. Because if you don't determine it, a bunch of monkeys around you are going to do it for you, and you don't want them to do it. Yeah,
my response was like, okay. No.
It's like, cool. Yeah, I'm sorry, you're a failed artist.
Yeah. But that, again, that's what happened. Like he was like fucking in a punk band or something when he was 12, and he was the worst guy in the band, or like just couldn't ever get it together. So I'll start organizing the shows. I was like, yeah, okay, never mind.
Well, Frank Zappa said something really, really, he said many things that were very, very intelligent. Shit. Yeah, another great book, real Frank Zappa book, a great book. And there's some really good stuff in there just about, and he obviously never had commercial success, but he had created a huge body of work that's phenomenal and crazy and inspiring, and the musicianship
so much drugs.
Yeah, well, not him.
What?
He never. No.
The fuck out of here.
Burt Weenie sandwiches and cigarettes.
For real?
Yeah. Coffee, cigarettes.
Fuck me.
Yeah, no, everybody else. There's a really funny story about. I won't name the guitar player, but people who know about Frank Zappa will know who I'm talking about. It's not Steve Vai.
Who was his guitar player, right?
Well, yeah, one of them. He's had many amazing guitar players. But one of the guitar players who's also, I think, one of the best frontmen I've ever seen, and one of the best guitar players I've ever heard in my life. Played with a bunch of huge artists. Both after Frank Zappa in particular. He's at Frank's house in the basement at the Barking Pumpkin studio recording something with Frank, and he just looks around and he's like, "Wow, man, how do you afford all this awesome gear?" And he goes, "Simple. I don't do cocaine." And the guy was like.
Well, I just assumed it because it was so fucking crazy out there. And
well, you see pictures of like Terry Bozzio, wearing like a Speedo and just playing the living shit out of his drums and then singing and too, and it looks like he's gacked out of his skull. And I don't know if he was or wasn't.
Yeah. People don't believe me when I tell them I've never done drugs. So I was just like, really? He goes, I just never. Trust me, I live in Los Angeles. I've seen it. It's been in front of me. It's right there. I could do it, but I was just like,
Well, I mean, the thing is, if you're going to do coke, go to Bolivia or Peru, then you're actually doing coke. If chewing on leaves, you're actually doing cocaine. Here, it gets stepped on so much, you're just going to have like baby laxative and vitamin C. And if you want to do good coke, find models. They have the best coke. Models always have the best coke. The few times I've done
90% of their diet, like so.
Yeah, it keeps them skinny. But the thing is, like it's like the few times I've done coke, which I haven't done in a very long time, because I'm not
here to judge.
No, it's not my vibe. It's not my vibe.
Do you want to do it right now?
No.
Okay.
No. No, my train goes downtown, man. But you know, the times I've done coke, it was, you know, it was always the best if I did was with models. Because they got the good stuff, but it wasn't the real shit. That's the thing. I mean, like I said, if you want to do the real thing, you gotta go to the source. Because there's a really good Gordon Ramsay program that he did where he went through the whole refining process of cocaine. And I swear, anybody who sees that will never do cocaine again.
Dude, I watched a documentary on it, and
it's so
was
gnarly.
Disgusting.
Dude, the kerosene gas. I mean, the shit that you're not doing a plant anymore. You're doing some shit that it's instant sinus infection. That's one reason why I can't do it. I instantly get a sinus infection. Plus the fact that I can just drink a pot of coffee.
That's the most lamest thing I've ever heard.
It sucks. It's an instant sinus infection.
I can't do cocaine anymore because I get sinus infection.
Well, the thing is, I can just drink a pot of coffee and act like an asshole to everybody. It's the same fucking effect, you know. It's like I just don't. It's not my thing, you know. For me, when I was doing a lot of drugs, it was always psychedelics. Because I was always trying to go there.
Yeah, my friends do a lot of that shit, mushrooms and stuff.
Yeah, like mushrooms are always fun. Kind of a tickle, haha, funny. You know, a lot of LSD because I always had really clean liquid. You know, where I grew up, there was always that because there was a lot of time for people to do it, and it was a college town where I grew up, so there was always a lot of LSD around. And reading Carl Jung books and reading Carlos Castaneda and things about Mexican brujos, like witch doctors, and reading about how they would transform after literally.
Fuck that!
Well, it was a journey. They were trying to find that thing that was outside of human experience. What? Oh yeah. What I was talking about was Carlos Castaneda talked about in the Teachings of Don Juan, which is a really great book that honestly reading that saved my life a couple times. What I learned from it.
I know. Give me a rough breakdown of who Don Juan was. I have my idea of who he was.
The Teachings of Don Juan is a book that was the first in the series of books that later became not quite as good as the first one, in my opinion. Carlos Castaneda he was a student at USC, and he went to Sonora, Mexico, to meet this gentleman named Don Juan, who was a Yaqui Indian, Yaqui, Yaqui Indian, Aboriginal, basically, or native Mexican, like a witch doctor, essentially, or a sorcerer. And he, through Don Juan's practice of utilizing what he called allies, which were substances, datura being like a root, a medicine. His personal ally he chose was something called the smoke, which was basically a mushroom that he would crush and smoke. Okay. And then there was another. I'm trying to remember the other one. There's another one that was. Gosh, I need to read it again. There's another one. But
I'm learning.
The smoke was the one that Don Juan chose, and the one that Carlos Castaneda gravitated towards. And there's a section in the book where he smokes it and has this out of body experience where he becomes a crow and he flies.
Okay.
And peyote obviously was a big one. And that one obviously you eat it and you barf your guts out, and then you have this incredibly crazy it's just you purge like you would if you drank too much whiskey, and then but you're having this really crazy metaphysical experience where you're going through what he classified as non-ordinary reality that's still happening when you're not experiencing it, because it's a different a dimension essentially,
realm or something around this.
It was subconscious, that kind of thing, and it kind of correlates because I was reading a lot of Carl Jung at the same time, who's a modern, father of modern psychology. And these are things I'm reading in high school.
Wow!
Because I was starved for information.
Are you a nerd?
Well, if anything, I will. Well, it's funny because in 10th grade I was student teaching anatomy and physiology. I was gonna be a neurologist. I was going to work on people's brains.
So just say you're a nerd.
I was a nerd. I was a nerd, but I was getting laid and had long hair and played rock and roll. So I was a nerdy rock and roller.
You're everything I ever wanted to be.
Well, I was student teaching, and I'd go to school on fucking on mescaline. I'd tripping balls in school because I was so bored with it.
Wait, why were you on mescaline?
That's because I had it.
Oh, okay. You took it out. Okay, perfect.
I took mescaline because I had it. And purple dot, and it was good, And I remember doing some Shakespeare skits one day in class, and I only broke character for a second, but I was tripping balls. But we would go around to the underclassmen, and I'm fully tripping on mescaline. I remember laying on my back during lunch hour, looking up one of the cheerleaders' skirts and just checking out her shit.
You don't do that anymore.
Oh, I totally did, and she busted me, but she didn't care. She actually moved, and I was like, thanks. It was an interesting day, but I went to an underclassmen's class, and we did some skits from like Romeo and Juliet, where I played Juliet's father, and the apothecary, who Shakespearean characters. And at one point, I'm telling Juliet, out, foul spot, kicking her out of my house, and her face is going, and I just go, and then in the middle of it, this guy was like, holy shit, your face is moving in such a crazy way. And it was funny. And the girl who actually I kind of like came out to it was like, I'm totally tripping balls. She goes, I'm like, she goes, yeah, I was doing really good, except for that little laugh you made. I'm like, well, yeah, I didn't think anyone would notice that. But that's the things you do in a small town when you're bored and nothing's a challenge and you're bored with school, And I wish I just got my GED and got the fuck out.
No shit. Like, I talked to my friend Emily last week. Like, I was hanging out with her, and she's like telling me all about like holistic stuff and mushrooms and all of that, and like talking about like ayahuasca trips and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh man, it all sounds amazing. And then it's like, but she was telling me about this experience. Like, she did it, and she felt like, Kevin's back out. Everyone.
That's okay.
And she had to go to like the darkest part of her mind, and like she was in this. She was being guided. It was fine, but she knew that she was not allowed to get out of it until she resolved it. And then she said after whatever length of time it resolved, came out, and she said she felt like she was purged everything. I'm not doing that, because if I go there, I might get stuck there forever. So
that's the thing about psychedelics. They were the thing is, it's like LSD. For my knowledge of it is that basically it triggers a chemical in your brain that's already there in your hypothalamus, and it's the same kind of experience that monks would have Buddhist monks would have for 3 days of not eating or sleeping, and then next thing you know, it's a survival mechanism. And it's basically what LSD was a trigger to skip that 3 days of fasting and not sleeping just to get you to that point. And I had some great experiences, and I created a bunch of crazy music and had fun and was entertaining, but I never got to that point where I was, never being a believer in the archetypes of God and devil, but reading all about them and understanding the symbolism involved and blah, 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 and yin and yang and all these cross.
Again, I'm too cynical for it. It's just
you look at nature. That nature for me rules everything, and it's infinitely feminine. It's not masculine. I mean, there's things about it that are just terrifying and incredibly like strong and destructive. Whereas obviously women being the creative aspect of, and I guess you think Mother Nature and like hurricanes and storms and disease.
That's just nature on its period.
Exactly. There's feminine and masculine elements to obviously to everything. But I never had that experience that I was looking for after reading about like Timothy Leary.
I don't think I need the drugs to see or appreciate or feel those things. I get it. It probably would enhance it and make me see things in a different way or more.
Well, you don't have to be a heroin addict to read a William Burroughs book to understand what a heroin addict's life's like. You can experience that through reading. And I mean, I definitely suggest that because I've lost a number of people to heroin, and I wouldn't suggest it. That's one thing I've never tried to do, and the same reason why I don't have any tattoos. And everybody I know is tattooed except for me. I'm kind of the exception to the rule.
I'm sorry if I offend you.
No, not at all. I think tattoos are great, and I've been offered a ton of it. I don't like needles. I'm not a needle guy, and it's like that's one reason why I don't like to give blood. I don't even know what my blood type is.
Neither do I. It's weird.
It is weird. If I get really injured, I might be really fucked.
I'm like, mosquitoes really like me.
But it's there's the one time I really had a true psychedelic experience that revealed to me some truths.
Okay.
Was after a friend of mine committed suicide. About 4 days after. But and it's funny because he was that's a person who actually saved my life one time. He dragged me out of a building that was on fire, and I was like breathing smoke, and I didn't know. I was just going to go to sleep.
I was
like,
die.
I was dying, and he like started pounding holes in the roof and running hoses up, and the embers were all on fire, and all this crazy shit was going on, and I was just like, and I just smoked weed because I was high, and I was like, I'm just tired because I'm high. It was like, no, dude,
you're called carbon monoxide poisoning.
you are breathing dying. Wood.
Yeah,
you're breathing burning wood and the plaster in the ceiling, and he saved my life, and he was this amazing guy who was a grip. He'd done some time in prison. He was a super intelligent. He went to Wales and built an electrical like facility, like generators and all kinds of shit. hyper capable human being, highly intelligent, you know, and got arrested for being on top of the Blue Cafe in Long Beach completely naked. The SWAT team came and got him and took him for an elevator ride. Dan, oh man, what a guy. But he was also someone that reminded me a lot about certain parts of myself, and that was that person who worked really hard for everybody else, always gave of himself, and he basically gave everything to the point where his hands were so arthritic he couldn't work anymore. I should have known something was up, because the last 4 days I hung out with him, he was like drinking wine, smoking weed with me, and he'd never done that before. And he's like, man, you know, my hands are really stiff. And he's like, do you have a guitar I could borrow? I'm like, dude, I'll build you a guitar, because I do that. And he's just like, you'll build a guitar for me? I'm like, yeah, dude. I mean, yeah, of course I will for you, you know. And 4 days into it, and you know, it was like right after New Year's Eve, and I'm trying to remember the year. It was 2001, no, 2002, no, 2000, 2002, yeah, 2002.
Don't do drugs.
Well, I had to remember, because I soon after that I left the band I was in, because I had learned something that made me like decide, okay, get on with your life. You just watched a friend of yours, basically. He hung himself, but he didn't hang himself. He choked himself out. He could have stood up and lived, but he was just done. He didn't want to. What I learned from him was that he didn't want to be anybody's. He didn't want to be a burden to his family and to his friends, because he just couldn't work anymore. There's people that are mutual friends with me, he and I, that I know owed him money that would have made all the difference in the world in his life. That, you know, he's just one of those people who just selflessly gave and gave and gave and gave and gave till the point where he was done.
Jesus, that's sad, man.
He was 38.
Fuck
38.
That. Like, so I talk a lot. I think if I talk about a lot about like being like depressed and kind of that meaning of life and shit as well, and it's just like I hear stuff like that and I'm like going again, like it could be anybody, but for me, like it could be me. I was like, oh crap, and I don't want to feel like that. Like, so
I felt like that, you know, in the last 2 years of high school, and I knew I didn't belong there. I knew I was spinning my wheels. I knew I was wasting my time. I knew I've known since I was the very first memory I have as a person. I must have been really young, because I remember being in that crib.
Wow.
So I was young.
Yeah, that's young.
And I remember being in my crib and looking up, and there was this blue bell that had little blue bells on it, and when I moved, it made music. That's my first memory.
Wow.
And I was young.
Yeah.
And I remember just playing that bell by shaking my crib.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's the first memory I have, and I was obviously an infant. Like, I was in a crib, and I couldn't stand up and jump out. I was young.
That's nuts.
And that, to me, was the signal of everything I was supposed to do. And that, until I could find a way to facilitate that later on, you know. And you know, not everybody gets that gift handed to them in life. You know, there's a lot of people. You know, I've worked with people who are stuck in a cubicle. They get married, get a couple kids, get a house, get that ball and chain, you know. And you know, some people that's what they want to do. They just want to be a parent and have kids and be like their parents, maybe. And there's nothing
totally
wrong.
Fine.
Nothing wrong with that. I've
actually talked about it, because I've had a vasectomy, and I've told everybody did a podcast on it. I was like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like,
there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
What's wrong with it is people like me that know they don't want to do it, and they just do it anyway, or they get trapped in relationships, or like, I'm like, I don't want that. Like, so just that was the first, man, when I fucking ended my last relationship, the first thing my mother said is like, so aren't you so lucky no children are involved? I was like, thank fucking God. Like, so I'm not religious, but Jesus, thank God. Like, so
I mean, that was the whole reason why I got married, is because I was 42 years old. I thought, well, it's time to be a dad. And like, I just want one, and just do it right, and I'll spoil them.
And as you said earlier, technically you got it. So
yeah, I got it. All right, I learned. Yeah, it's cool. Whatever, you know. I wish her the best. You know, but when being 50 now, it's like being a.
You don't look 50.
I can't say it's clean living. No, I've limited my vices to ones that I can handle. Red wine, coffee, and weed. Anything beyond that, I'm like,
and all that's legal here.
Yeah, it is all legal. It's nice. Well, I give all the credit to my mom. You know, she's got it. I take more after her side of the family. I'm a slight build. She looks very young for her age. All of her family lives, you know, forever. I mean, my only grandparent left is her father, and he's 95, and he's got the sharpest memory he's got a sharper memory than I do, and I've got a pretty good. Yeah, and he's a Marine, fought in World War II in Korea.
Where does he live?
He lives in Michigan.
Shit.
Lives in Michigan.
Does he ever come out here?
No, he can't travel really.
I guess right.
He's an interesting guy. Sweet man.
He was in World War II?
World War II and Korea.
Fuck.
Marine.
God,
Yeah.
I would love to talk to someone like that.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like people. I mean, my father's father was in World War II as well, and he never spoke. He had a stroke, and that's strokes and heart attacks are what plagues my father's side of his family. My dad's actually still alive. He's doing good. Doing better than he was last year. He's on an oxygen tank though. He's got he's as he said, I wished I quit smoking 40 years ago instead of 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So he's got one lung that works and about 25% of one that does work.
Yeah.
The thing is, he's a great cook, and he can't because he's on oxygen. He can't go in the kitchen because of open flame. The whole house would be up.
Shit, right?
Yeah. So it's funny. After my parents split, I ended up being the best man in my dad's remarriage, and they've been together ever since. And so I think my parents' divorce was a lot harder. And my sister was 3 years older than me, and she, dads and daughters have the connection that maybe fathers and sons don't as much. Or I was too young to really understand. And he was a cop. He was a detective, and angry, drunk Irish cop.
Hey, no,
you're a hammer and everything's a nail. That's the thing. So I mean, and my mom being sharp as a razor and super capable, a woman, a corporate lady, and super successful her whole life, and I can imagine the two of them together.
Yeah, just like two bulls on a giant.
It's no surprise I'm who I am, and it's no surprise my sister is who she is. And she's raised two amazing sons. That one's in pre-med, who's like working on a cure for cancer right now. He's a really bright kid. And the other one, Jake, who I'm driving up to Northern California to move my mom actually south down to Lake Elsinore this weekend. Going to be going all next week, packing up everything in her house of 30 years. It's interesting. I mean, I'm 50, so I've got some time to maybe meet somebody and have a kid at some point. But
you've lots of time. You're fine.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I don't know if I want to bring one into this world right now.
There is one of the main reasons I got a vasectomy.
Yeah.
So, because well, maybe I am cynical by nature. I don't think I'm cynical, but like I'm cynical towards like with the world we're living in. I made a judgment call for myself. Like, so also like if you like, it's, I don't know where the science is on this, like, but with like depressions and anxiety disorder, a lot of that's hereditary within bloodlines and stuff. So it's just like, I don't feel good about bringing a small child into this world, because like, the thing is, my theory on it is we don't raise them anymore.
Yeah.
Now we have phones and computers and internets and all this shit. You don't really raise them. Like teaching values to kids is very different now as it was. Like, dude, I knew when I was younger, if I did anything wrong, I was getting a beating, and that was it. And that's bring back beating kids. No, I'm kidding. But I'm not really. But I am kind of.
When you learn manners,
dude, and it's still to this day one of my I hang out with a bunch of horrible cunts. Like, they're the best. I love them. Like, they're fucking the best. All the lads I hang. But a big thing amongst all of us is manners. Like, we're very like, we all like, shut up, you stupid prick. Like, blah blah blah. But like, pass me the salt. Thanks very much. Excuse me. Like, kind of manners is a massive thing. It's
well, my mom was raised Southern Baptist.
Okay.
And they're fucking crazy. Where my dad was Irish Catholic. So those two things,
different type of
those
crazy.
Two things right there were like, not going to work.
Rule an iron fist, those old Irish Catholics.
But my mom, I ate more soap and I had more yardsticks across the back of my thighs than you can imagine, man. And I also had fingernails into the earlobe with blood coming out.
Oh my God!
Because I was a shit. I was a shit, and I learned, and I learned not, if I was going to be a shit, to do it so no one found out.
That's hilarious. Well, that's
hide your shit.
That's the funny thing about like the world. Like, we never even talked about. I want to kind of like wrap it because it's long, and I want to do another one because like we never. I know you're big, like not big into it, but you're politically minded, and but you have some great views on the world and the what's going on. And
well, I think it's all a balancing act, and I think as far as politically, I can say for one thing, I'm an issues voter. I'm a registered independent, but I come from like a blue collar, working background, and I grew up on a farm. But both my stepfather and father were law officer or law enforcement. Yeah. Most of my family was, on my mom's side in particular, and my dad's side, military.
Yeah.
So pretty much all conservative people. Some conservative Democrats, some conservative Republicans, but pretty much conservative. But I was never. My mom, like you mentioned something about raising your other people. I kind of raised myself. My mom just kind of was like, don't get in trouble and I won't bug you. So I learned how to not get in trouble.
Yeah.
But I also had Legos and stuff to keep me occupied as a
your
kid.
mind,
I was building and then creating, from a young age till I could get a hold of, instruments. And I was like biding my time to a degree probably. But I also always had music to listen to. So I always had something to keep me in line.
Yeah.
And I knew I had to do something, but I hung out with other kids. I played sports. I came up playing sports and stuff, and I realized I was never going to be, the Pittsburgh Steelers defensive end because I couldn't gain enough weight to do that. Though I was a good athlete, I just was never. It wasn't, I couldn't gain weight, and I was strong and in shape because I was a farm boy. But I was never going to be a college football player or a college hockey player or a college wrestler or whatever. I knew that wasn't my route. Plus, I was making money, and I was like, none of these chicks that I'm with are making out with me because I'm an athlete. They're making out with me because I got long hair and I'm in a band.
That's amazing. And so the road began.
Yeah.
And Greg went down it.
Well, politics, I think, I'm going to say this about the current state.
Make it brief because I want to do a whole or
okay.
If you want to come back, no, this is fantastic.
Absolutely.
Because now I want to go back and I'm like, shit, I learned too much, so I'm going to go back and listen to this all. I'm
going to say one thing.
Do it.
I know a couple billionaires, one who actually earned it, and who worked really hard, one who was born into it, and that's how most of them are. Let's just be honest. I have a problem. It's like when you shake hands with an A&R person, and it's like grabbing a fish. You can tell they've never worked a fucking day in their life.
Yes, soft mushy hands. I swear to God, this is. I can back this story up 1,000,000%. Go. Sorry.
They've never worked a day in their life.
Not a callus.
Not a
my
single
hands
one.
are fucking ruined.
Yeah, my fingers are bent.
Yeah.
I've got scars. I don't have tattoos.
I judge men like that.
Of course, I do too. And it's like if you're lucky enough to go through life not having to bust your ass, cool. Yeah. But appreciate the effort that helped you create your position in the world.
I see where this is going.
Yeah. This is the thing is I will say this to all the political people, political-minded people out there who should be everyone, because whether you invest in politics or not, it invests in you. Everything that you do is political in some way. You vote with your dollar, so research who you're supporting. If you're okay with supporting those people, then keep spending your money there. If you're not okay, don't give them your money. What I will say is the biggest problem that we're having in this country right now is wealth disparity. And the fact is that racism, sexism, all the isms.
They don't exist. What are you talking about?
Well, yeah, those are all symptomatic of a bigger problem that always comes to the head in societies where great wealth gets owned by way too few, and the problem is we're headed towards almost like a feudal system again, and it's the problems aren't between the people in the bottom 99%. Those are all the same people, regardless of color, background, ethnicity, religion, whatever. That's all those people are in the same. It's a big club and you ain't in it.
Yeah.
And that club, and the problem is the people who are so wealthy that they don't reinvest in the society that enables their wealth. And I'm a capitalist. I'm a small business owner, but I believe in capitalism with ethics and morality. And you do good business because it's not that hard to be a decent human being. It actually takes more energy to be a fucking asshole.
100%.
And, it's like, you can't take it with you. So, be generous. Help people. Always lead, a hand down to lift people up. You don't punch down. Yeah. You punch up, if anything. But, there's people who have earned it. And there's people who, I think, have been incredibly generous to me that had not much more than myself. And I've given away countless dollars to people. I've been lucky enough to make a bunch of money from the record industry at points and just like helped other people with it, this and that, and enabled people to create money on my back. And that's fine. But I think the biggest symptom of what's going on right now in this country is the wealth disparity and the fact that there's people who work themselves to death and have nothing to show for it, barely can get through life. And they're not bad. They're not lazy. And I'm not talking about...
It's just unfortunate.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, and unbridled capitalism or vulture capitalism, like I call it, is... It's that's what's creating all these problems.
I will say two things. One, I quote my friend who's a wise philosopher, Bob. I talk about him a lot. He has a paraphrasing so you don't leave the village, you take the village with you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's the mentality I feel like me and a lot of the friends I have. That's how we live by. And two, 2024, Gregory Coates. I like the sound of it. I'm just saying. I'm putting it out there. We can get like Soundgarden as his fucking anthem. We'll do some fucking killer vignettes and all that shit. Like, so you like fucking banging a coffee, a beer, and some weed, and you're just like, and all you're doing is saying what's true. That's it. Like, I can deal with that. Like, so.
Well, you know, I think you know, I've been blessed and lucky to travel the world and play music and be involved in other ethnicities who are super inclusive with me, and maybe not everyone's had that experience, but the biggest two problems are greed and fear. And you know, if you live in fear, you're not living at all, and you can't be afraid of other people because they're just people.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you can't take this stuff with you. So you know, the very best, make sure you live a life where people, when you're gone and they mention your name, they have a smile on their face, or at least a positive nod. You know, just do that. Just do that much.
I'm stopping it here. That was amazing. You know what? We still have to finish the why Eddie Vedder owes Chris Cornell.
And I didn't tell you my story about what I saw, but we'll
No, I want to do it all again, please.
It was an amazing experience, and I mean, there was a room full of people there that witnessed it, and they were just like, holy shit. Because I basically talked to a dead person in front of a group full of people.
I can't. You're down to do this again? Cause
I
want to keep. I know. Sorry, it's cold in here as well.
No. I get chills thinking about that. It's like when I there's just certain things that there is things way beyond what we know.
Yeah.
There's realities way beyond. There's dimensions. There's things that we can't qualify or quantify. Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about the world,
yeah.
Life, and the people in it. So we just gotta stop being fearful and stop being greedy, and let's start sharing all this shit.
Absolutely.
We sound like a bunch of fucking hippies ending this crap.
Well, you know, it's idealism, but you know, there's ideas that are good.
Yeah, well, that's how shit gets done, though, as well. Like, so on that note, like, so if I hope the world gets going again, just to sometime soon, and hopefully fucking the Bourbon Room opens up again, and hopefully Rock of Ages starts again, and I actually have acquired you and your business skills or your talents a few months ago, but if you're in LA or anywhere or surrounding counties and they need like guitar work done or instrument work done, I'll put the links in the thingy below and all that stuff. Like, so is there anything you want to plug for yourself? Or
no, I've done I've got like 6 or 7 records I'll have done by the end of this year. You know,
can they find under your name?
Not under my name, but I'll give you all the details when we come back. We'll get into this last part of it, because we didn't even get into really a lot of what I've done musically and people I worked with and this and that and people I hope to work with, you know. And I got stories, man.
Dude, this is great. I think this is going to be like a multicast or something.
Well, if people are interested, you know.
I don't give a fuck. I'm interested. Well, on that note, like I'm going to call it because like it's like nearly 2 hours, which is hilarious. Shit. It's awesome. I love it. So all the same shit. Like if with me, if you enjoy the podcast, all that crap, blah 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 blah, or enjoy anything I do, you can donate. Patreon.com/Jimmy Trigger. Venmo and Cash Apps are at Jimmy Trigger. The PayPal is at triggerwithin@gmail.com for any donations, dollars, whatever the fuck, quarter, whatever the fuck you want.
Support.
Yeah, because none of us are playing shows. None of us are really selling anything anymore, which fucking sucks as well. And I'll link Greg's fucking socials. Fucking follow him. Like, why not? I follow him. It's cool. I like it. We like things. He might say something that you like. But yeah, no, dude, come back. I want to do more because this is like, I can't. I'm excited tomorrow to listen back to this for myself because I'm like, what the fuck was just said?
Well, there's a bunch of things we touched on that we'll complete later.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
All right. So episode 35. That was Greg, Jimmy, Kev was in this a lot.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed it. This is the Triggerman Podcast. Bye. Fuck off my lawn.